This frame was called unrepairable.
This 60 series Land Cruiser has seen it all.
This is brutal. With a catch drinnen.
And some more.
That's bullshit repair 1+1. It's like a Sachertorte chocolate cake.
One thing is for sure.
We took a huge risk repairing it, but today we will destroy it.
You mean repaired?
Yeah, repair it.
So come along for today's episode.
Now we have a finished inner C channels.
We go from welding fish plates in to fitting a whole new complete inner section. And we go from this
It looks delicious in my eyes.
to this.
I see that the frame is a little off. That's how hot they welded the frame. That is so ridiculous.
Bondo is just everywhere. There's no spot on this car where there's no Bondo. That's crazy.
Come along when we finish the inner section of this frame. Deal with a bent crossmember and try to clean out the rear part of the frame.
Truck and trailer are ready. We will get today the frame. Okay, let's go.
For context here, after the last episode we brought the frame to the sandblaster. Because we welded in the outer section of the frame, the inner section needed to be blasted before we start to repair it today. And here is why.
He only will blast the areas where I welded in the template on the inside, where you can't access afterwards when I welded in the inner C channels. And when we put the frame back together with the C channels in, so the inner C channels and the C channels in the rear, and also the two cross members and shock tube, he will blast the rest of the frame. We will see us again when we loaded the frame.
The good thing is that we only have a short drive ahead of us.
In the back of my car, we have the frame. He's back from the sandblaster, and now we will bring it to the shop.
With the loaded frame we arrived in no time at the shop.
We have the frame back. Let's take a look at it.
Now you can perfectly see that only the inner frame got sandblasted. You might ask why we did that. Because when we later weld in the inner parts of the channel, we can't access it anymore, and the old rust will stay in there.
Now we will talk a little bit what we do next. As you see, the frame is just sandblasted in the inside. The next thing we will do is get the inner C channels back in. But for that, I have to clean it out. I mean, it is clean because it is sandblasted, but clean out all the old Toyota welds. Also grind down the welds from my welded in template. Then we will put over the template from behind a fish plate to strengthen it further, just to be sure. You never know what someone does with a car, so just for safety measurements. First we will get in the front C channels, afterwards the bent ones, then we will get in back the brake cross member. It's not the brake cross member, it's actually the cross member where all the brake lines are sitting on, so I call it the brake cross member. Then the shock tube is missing and the rear C channels. This will be the last thing. And afterwards it will get sandblasted entirely and then painted. Let's move it back to somewhere with a roof so we can work a little bit on it.
Time to reverse the trailer under the roof to get a bit more protection from the sun, and we are ready to go.
The frame is on its working position, and the first thing we will do is drill some holes. Here we have the new inner C channels. As you see, the old ones rusted out as beep, not usable anymore. Same on the other side. And the first thing we will do, as I said, is drill holes. So I will use the old one as templates, drill all the holes in it so I can afterwards bolt on the brake lines and fuel lines and everything, and let's go.
We start with the right inner C channel. For the C channel I used a 0.3 cm thick steel plate. First we take the old piece and put over a new one to mark the set holes. Little tip here, I always start with a little drill and afterwards switch to a bigger one to make things easier. And don't forget to grind the leftover metal. I weld on the nuts for the brake line holders and fuel lines.
Now we have a finished inner C channel. The best thing with it actually is it is rust free. The next thing we will do is I will cut off the upper part of the jig on the frame that I am able to fit this thing in and also to grind out the C-channels so I can weld in the fish plate.
Now the upper part of the jig has to go. We need to cut everything that will be in our way later on. But we need to be a bit careful here, because the frame doesn't have the stiffness back yet, so we can't cut the whole jig. Cut everything would lead to unwanted distortions of the frame.
Mucho gusto grinding.
You can definitely tell I love grinding. That is also needed, because in order to fit the new channel, we have to grind away the welds. One thing I definitely have to mention is, you shouldn't grind down the whole weld, because otherwise it will lose some stiffness, and it is prone to breaking. And after grinding, a spacer is needed, which has a simple reason.
Because I have to fit in the new inner C-channel. And the guy who pressed the inner C-channel pressed it so precise that it is a snugly fit, like the old ones I got out with the screwdriver and the hammer. So I have to press it a little bit apart to get it in, just for trying if everything aligns. I hope that everything will look good afterwards on the inner side, because we already know it looks good on the outer side. But we will see.
Spoiler, after a little rant, things went way smoother.
Der Rahmen ist echt repariert worden. Das macht echt dreimal so viel Arbeit, als was normal war, weil das echt so ist.
But nothing we will not fix. After a few hammer taps, things look way better.
The fitment is very precise and it looks very, very good. When I release the bolt, it will, and afterwards from in this section where you see a big gap, there is actually such a little inner use channel they put in, Toyota put in, and then put a weld over it. We will do the same. I have also a tiny C channel, and then everything will be. I finished the inner C profiles, and what I do now, I take a brush and put some primer on it from the inside and also on the frame. And why I do that? Because Toyota didn't do it. That's why they rust as hell, because they on the inside actually there's actually pretty much no paint, and every paint is better than non-paint, and that's why we do it. And what you see here and here are the tiny small C's I mentioned before. Because when you put in the inner C profile, it connects not like this to the next profile. There is something in behind, like this little inner C channels, and so you can weld it all the way through and it will hold together and not just hold on the weld, it will actually hold on metal. So it's just more flexible, okay?
Time to also apply some rust primer to the inner C channel. While everything dries, we make the fish plate that will be welded over the channel. A little explanation: here we have the C channel that is sandblasted. Here we have the fish plate. The fish plate will be welded over the C channel to create a stronger, more durable connection. It's important that the fish plate is bigger than the welded piece, to really create support and not just thickness. Also here I use a 0.3 cm thick steel plate. Fortunately we can use the same template we had for the outer channel. It only needs to be a bit longer. If you want to know how I made the template, I will link the video in the info box and also in the description. And by the way, don't forget to mark the set holes.
I did cut it out in the same style as I did actually the templates. And what I do now is I will round these holes. Oh! I will round these edges. I will round these edges. Edges are always a bad thing in terms of structure and how force moves through material and so on and so on and so on. It is also bigger than the template. What is also very important, the template is, what I welded in is like this big. And why I drill holes, if I put it on there, let's say this iron plate is my welded in template, you see I only could weld it on the edges, so I drill a lot of holes so I actually can weld them tight together. It's just easier, because when you just weld on the edges, it will just hold on the edges. It's a logical thing. and that's why we drill the holes, so it is one solid structure.
Now we need to round the edges as mentioned. And voila, we are done. After that I make a grid on the template. This grid helps me to drill the holes later on. But before drilling, we need to punch the holes to make it easier and more precise. Now the boring part begins, and that is drilling 1000 holes, which I don't going to bore you with.
I finished the strengthening fish plate thing. Took me some time to drill all the holes. The paint is dry. We'll put the fish plate in, and I will mark the holes on the paint, and the just will grind where I make the holes. So, I mean, when I weld it, the paint will flake off in some areas, but better some flaked off paint than no paint, as all Toyota guys know. And be sure, when you do something like that, big repairs on a frame, that you put in a strengthening plate, because then, probably when you hit a trail and beat the shit out of your Land Cruiser, it will break. And that's not the funny part.
Time to fit our fish plate. As soon as we aligned everything, it's time to mark where we have to grind the paint in order to weld it on. And look at that! Before welding it properly, we have to put anti-grease on and paint everything. Make sure to be really precise here. After the anti-grease has dried, it's time to apply some rust primer. When spraying rust primer, I usually go with 2 to 3 layers. While the primer is drying, we can grind free the paint. Only thing left now is to secure the fish plate so it can't go anywhere. Then I set my welder to around 200 amps to make the plug welds. These plug welds need to be spot on and actually hold something. I really take my time welding these. Here you can perfectly see how the weld penetrates the material, and this is how the finished weld looks like. But here is a reminder you should always think about.
Ooh, I think we have to stop. Yes, we have to stop, it's too hot, it could potentially twist or wrap.
So we really take our time. Keep the heat to minimum and let the material cool off. After around 40 to 45 minutes, we are finished with our fish plate.
We have done it. I bolted on the 2 body mounts and also the spring hanger with some bolts. I don't know how it is called in English, but they look pretty much as the original ones. And now we'll weld it on from behind, so you can unbolt it when you want without the nut is turning, and you can't reach it afterwards when I close the frame. Then I will paint it, and then I will put in the first NSC on this side, and afterwards we will see how it looks, and hopefully it looks good.
Back on the good old rust primer. Same as before, a thick layer is what I'm looking for. It's better to be safe here than sorry. In order to be safe, we let it dry overnight, and the next day we fit the NSC channel.
The fish plate is painted, and the NSC channel, the short one, is in on the right side. And here we have my so-called brake cross member. What we do now is, before we start to weld in this little section, we have to do the other side. Be sure the brake cross member fits in, because you can adjust the deepness of the NSC channel. In the big C channel, you could shovel it in all the way, so it is flush, but they aren't flush. They stick out a little bit. And because the frame was machine welded in the early 80s, even the cross member is a little off. Every cross member is slightly different. The only thing we have to do is to adjust the left side NSC channel, and then the position of the brake cross member should be more or less clear. But also, when they, let's say, welded it not so professional, they bent with a screwdriver or I would say probably also a crowbar on the cross member here on the ears, so they could bend it out, because they shoveled a little piece of iron behind it because there was a hole actually. So we have to bend it back. I will measure on other frame the cross member wide and on the bottom, and I hope then everything will fit.
Now onto the left side C channel. I'm telling you, this side will have some surprises for us, but for now it's pretty much the same process as before. Mark the set holes and drill them afterwards. Let us not forget about grinding down the old welds, in order to fit the new C channel. In the meantime, my brother takes care of the fish plate for this side. We take the template, make it a bit longer, mark everything, and afterwards cut it out and smooth out the edges. And here it is. And after drilling all the holes, we are done.
Now I clean down my fish plate because there is some oil in it from drilling the holes. I also painted the frame in the inside and also the inner C channel, and what we have to do now is to wait that the paint is dry.
Did I mention that I love rust primer?
Fish plate has now dried for quite some time. Now we're gonna fit it and see how adjustments are needed. And yeah, let's go. It fits pretty good and pretty snug. I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing we have to do now is, like here, where we have to weld later, we need to take off a little bit more because we're welding with around 200 amps. And if you weld with 200 amps, you need a bit more space, otherwise you would burn off the metal and you would see it from the outside that it is welded. And because we go for that factory look, we need to be really careful here. So yeah, only thing is we need to make that adjustment, and afterwards we will weld it in and the fish plate is done.
We remove the fish plate and take the grinder to make the last steps. Then it's time to refit the plate and we are ready.
So, adjustments are made. Adjustments are made and now ready to weld.
Off we go. Also here we start with the plug welds. Little tip here. When I weld, I always adjust the position of my clamps to really force the fish plate onto the channel.
We weld till the weld cools off. We're doing something Toyota should have done years ago, and it is applying some rust primer to the surfaces on that crossmember that will never see light again. This frame is now 42 years old. No, sorry, 43. It won't rust through, but we want to be 100% perfect here because that thing should never rust again, at least in the near future, so like in 10 to 15 years.
Time to prep the crossmember. Before we spray paint it, we make sure there is no dirt or grease on it. And like before, we go again with 3 layers of primer. While everything dries, we also put some anti-grease on the welded fish plate. And look at that greasy thing! That's why you always need to make sure you wipe everything down before painting it. The next thing is the bent piece. We take it as measurement for the channel to see how things fit. But before that, we need to grind off the welded on sheet metal. No worries, we won't use the front part anymore. We just need it to adjust the fitment.
When I love one thing about this car is that Bondo is just everywhere. There's no spot on this car where there's no Bondo. That's crazy.
While my brother is prepping the bent piece, I welded in the nuts for the spring hanger and also for the body mounts. Then I have to take the spacer again to bring the C-channel into position. But of course, this will not be as easy as on the right side.
So, as on every repair on the left rail, it's way more difficult than on the right rail, because nobody made a repair on the right rail, and that's why everything I fitted in the right rail was pretty much easy, and everything I made here is pretty much I have to widen a little bit the frame rails because they welded, when you watch the episode, a shoe over it somehow. What we see here is, I think they put some sheet metal over the damaged frame from about here, because I see the welding spot, to around here-ish somewhere. It seems they just made a U profile somehow, welded it on, and then bonded it. And that's why the frame rail is a little bit off. I mean, the frame is straight, but still the frame rail is a little bit off. It was also hard to get out all the inner frame rails, the inner Cs, the original ones. On the right side it was easy peasy with a screwdriver. I can say there is a little bit of tension in the left frame rail from the good welding. Now we have a problem. I have to cut the jig because I can't access so much of the frame rail, because I have to push apart a little bit the frame. It's just a millimeter. I don't need this part actually anymore. And afterwards, when I pressed it down, I will take a measurement tool, measure the entire length of the frame rail, if she is everywhere the same, so that she doesn't go like this. And if she goes like this, I will press it with some iron and form, and then we are good.
Fortunately, we only need to cut the middle part of the jig. Just a reminder before you cut the jig, make sure the frame has its stiffness back, otherwise you will have a big problem. And with some light hammer taps, it's out. Back to the C-channel. We finally have some space to get the channel back in.
So what I do now is I take some measurements, how far the frame rails, so how wide they are actually. I measured it before I took it apart, but as you know, on this side was bullshit repair, Bondo and everything on it, so it was a little hard to take a measurement. Lucky I have 4 60s here, so I can take a lot of measurements on 4 different 60s, and we will find a middle, how it is supposed to be and how it is. But I have to say, as I already said, they're all a little bit off. They're machine welded in the early 80s, so as long the frame is straight and you are, let's say when you do a frame repair, straight as the axles sit straight in, the frame rails are straight and not like this or twisted, there is no real problem. Because as you see, the body mounts are, the holes in it, wait, I measure it. The holes in the body mounts are 27 millimeters and a 10 millimeter bolt goes through it. So there is plenty of room, and most frames are a little twisted. The frame will not be twisted afterwards or anything like that, but the only thing I wanted to say with it, they all differ a little bit. It's just how it is. So funny thing, not on this frame. On this frame, this one is from a 62, 89. The frame is never welded and it is also not very rusty. There is everywhere Toyota paint, original one on it. I know I said paint on the outside, thin on the inside, but not on this one. This car was the last 20 years, not street legal anymore. And I measured that frame because that is the most original frame I have. Wait, the inner C-channel is like this long, and when you measure it, it differs by nearly 3 centimeters from millimeters from start to end, and also from edge to edge. Ja, so, da haben wir jetzt 53,5. Da haben wir 52 und 51. Was? Da haben wir 52. Und da haben wir, ja, ein bisschen was über 50. So it means it is not straight in there, in the frame. It is twisted like this in there. And that's why I said machine welding from the 80s. It's just not precise, it's something.
Now it's time to fit both band pieces into the channels.
So, as you see on the right side, it fits in nicely with some minor hammer taps with this tiny hammer. On the left side, it doesn't fit so nice. I see that the frame is a little off, not in terms of direction or it is twisted or something, just in terms of wideness.
Yep, that's a pretty big gap. You can definitely see why they welded the shoe over it, because they needed to hide their repair.
And that's a thing I have to correct with some clamps. Also, like with the inner C-channels, with the short ones, measure on the other frames where we should be, and then probably will take a good middle thing, because they welded way too much on this frame that I could get him on the spec of the other frames, but we don't talk about a centimeter or so. I just want to make it correctly and that everything looks afterwards really, really nice, and that's the goal on all this. I mean, it is not an all-out thing, but we are close to it.
While I was checking all the measurements on the frame, I noticed something odd. Take a look.
I never saw a body mount twisted like this, and the reason why I never saw a body mount twisted as this, they made the body mount solid with the frame. And when you look from above on it, you see that the body mount is twisted like this. That was because they welded it on one side and then it started to turn. It is bolted to the frame originally, and still it turned and bent the metal from behind, and that's how hot they welded the frame. That is so ridiculous.
That's something we need to address definitely. In order to avoid distortions in our repair, I always take measurements. The next step is to fit both band pieces in order to tack weld everything. As soon as everything is in place, we can start with repairing the bent piece. As you see, I put a template over the bent piece, because that's the part we need to replace. Everything else we can reuse, because it's in a pretty good shape. This is our piece we need to replace. Now we get the template of the rusted section. Afterwards we take a new template to make the fish plate again. It's a template from the whole bent piece. Luckily we only need half of it, because the fish plate will only put onto the piece we weld in. Time to cut it out, and we are another step closer to finish this frame. And here is our fish plate. I put it over the new section and marked the set holes, punching everything in. The only thing left is to drill everything out.
So the fish plate is finished, so I drilled the holes actually. And now I will put on some anti-rust primer and then weld it in.
And of course, what else we are going to do, other than putting rust primer on it. Before welding it in, we put it over the new piece, which also has rust primer on it. After grinding it free, I secure it as much as possible to a flat surface, to avoid welding distortions. Then we can start to weld it in. Don't forget to take your time, let the weld cool off and don't rush it.
I finished the right bent piece. It took me probably, I would say 4 hours to weld everything in, because I had to cool it down in between, because it got really hot and I didn't want that my inlet piece more or less got warped. That's why it took me so long. And the next thing I will do now, as you see, I fitted it. It fits perfectly, and now I will tack weld it in. And after tack weld, I will control everything, and then I will make some nice welding beads.
It's time for my most favorite thing, measuring. After clamping everything, we are set.
Now we will make the first tack welds. Let's weld.
We start with tack welding everything. Tack welds are basic requirements in order to fit the pieces in the right way. If the pieces are tack welded, we still have room to adjust if we need to. Now we need to check the alignment. Therefore I get the crossmember in.
I tack welded the right side. I test fitted in, let's say, our brake crossmember. It fits perfectly on the right side, but as I said before, the left side is off by probably a good centimeter, because I assume when they shoveled in the steel plate to make their U whatever, they took a crowbar and bent it back, so I have to adjust that afterwards. But when the rails are as far out as they are supposed to be, I just have to bend the thing in the other direction. And what I do now is I weld everything solid in. I will not weld all the way through. And why I don't weld all the way through? Because that is an early frame, and this thing is just welded here, then here, then here. So it looks the same as in the front of the frame. The later frames, as I said or mentioned before, are welded entirely through, but it is a 60 with 100 horsepower. I don't think we have to weld the entire frame through. There is so much stiffener blades in there, nothing can happen. It looks delicious in my eyes. I hope the other side, the left side, goes also as well as this side, but as we know from everything fitting into the left side, it will be a struggle. But this thing looks fabulous. After sandblasting the entire frame and painting it, I mean, if you know a Toyota frame, you will see it is repaired. But if you don't know a Toyota frame, I don't think someone will see that it is so heavily repaired, and actually we welded in so much on both sides. And the best thing, it will hold up probably the next 20 years. because there is so much metal now in it that I don't see any problems.
Then finally we can start on the left side. We do it like on the right side. We put a template over the section we want to replace, but with a whole lot more measuring. When everything sits in place, we tack weld the pieces and cut out the part that needs to be replaced. In the meantime, my brother starts with the fish plate. I am currently in the back prepping the main piece. And here is our fish plate. After drilling all the holes for the plug welds, we fit in and grind where we need to weld. And we start with the plug welds.
Whenever I slow down, I beat myself up.
Only thing left is the opening for the shock tube. This piece was in such bad condition, but now we need to cut it out in order to fit the shock tube. Also, here is the reminder to tighten your tools once in a while.
Found it.
After the adjustments are made, it's game on. We put the bent piece back in place and align it.
So good, the moment of truth. We weld in the last inner C-channel on the left side. Here, we will see how it goes and if the brake member fits afterwards.
I'm pretty nervous, measuring everything multiple times just to be sure. On this side we fix the gap with the help of some heavy-duty clamps. Clamping down will lead to having the right height again. As soon as we are done we can start with tack welding. With the tack welds finished, we go full throttle and weld everything together.
I'm super stunned at this. Now welded. Only thing missing, crossmember.
Super happy how everything aligned in the end, and it is time to put in the brake crossmember.
So next thing we do is we fit the brake crossmember and weld it on. That's our next plan.
It may look good on this side, but this one is definitely off.
Wow, that's bad. We will tack weld now the crossmember and then bend the lower pieces to the frame where they modified them with the crowbar, not crossbar, with the crowbar. And then actually we are finished besides the shock tube. I will get hopefully the shock tube in the next 1 or 2 days. We will see. And
then we will fix the rear C-channel. As you can tell, this will be a lot of fun. But back to the crossmember. I clamp it hard and pull it into position where it belongs. With some minor taps everything is back in place. With the right placement we can finally start to tack weld everything. I checked everything and it looks good. Time to weld it solid to the frame. And look at that!
I would say looks pretty good. The next thing or the last thing we do is get out the bolts of the C-channel. I will use my plasma torch to melt it out. Back there is the so-known Chernobyl vote. And then we have to grind that down, fit in the U-channels so they fit, and then the thing goes to the sandblaster. And sure, the shock tube will also be fitted in, but the shock tube is not necessary to get it sandblasted and thing. When we are finished, we will do a good old Austrian cavity wax diet for the frame.
And we are onto the plasma torch trying to cut out the remaining bolts. You see it has some effect, but I decided to go with the drill, because it's more gentle on the frame.
You have to drill a hole in the middle to get the tension out of the bolt, and then they get out easy. It is just a lot of work to drill like 30 holes.
With a bit of patience and a lot of drilling, this will be finished soon. I do it the same way as on the template. First I drill a little hole and then I follow through with a big drill. Afterwards I just hit it and it's out. My brother and I are working on the rear section, and here we have another win.
There we have the monstrosity of a weld. The elephant foot.
The right C-channel is finally clean. The only thing that remains is the left one. With the help of my trusted crowbar, we just need to push it out.
There we have the remains of the original U-channel.
And there it is. It's crazy to see the C-channels, but it's an even better feeling to see the C-channels cleaned out.
And afterwards, the frame will go to the sandblaster. He will blast all the rust away, hopefully. And that's it with today's episode. Thanks for watching.